a guy who I admire so much, who I've had the blessing recently getting to know, talking with, Jim Shooter. You guys have heard me over the years admire. He facilitated what is arguably the most successful era of Marvel in terms of their comics as its editor-in-chief. You gain more of a respect for him, especially when you enter into the publishing business, right? And you got to understand, definitely when you're dealing with artists, sometimes you're going to be the bad guy, right? And I think Jim Shooter became more appreciated the longer we went without him. And now the industry needs more Jim Shooters than they ever have. Got to finally meet him last year, was it? Was it last year or earlier this year? Can't remember. Been talking with him. We have our contact. We have each other's phone numbers. We've chatted, picking up some game. And he said something, and there's some folks that are very mad at him. I saw some, of course, leftist Twitter, comic book Twitter. Oh, Jim Shooter has a bad take. Okay, so let's listen to what Jim Shooter has right now, or says right now. And let's see if this is a bad take. Let's listen in. I'm going to turn this audio up right here. Let's listen in on what my man's had to say.
So how do you feel about the state of the comic book industry today?
I think they forgot what business they're in. I think that, hey guys, it's supposed to be entertainment, but a lot of it comes out like propaganda. And I don't care if you agree with every word they say. Nobody wants to read propaganda.
It's such a basic position, and he's 1,000% right. You know, this is what we are trying to do here at the Rippaverse, right? It's like, and I've got people that got mad at me over it, right? That would generally agree with me on certain political topics because they so desperately wanted us to be like the antithesis of like making art out of spite to leftists. Well, that's just propaganda on the other side. And it's like, sure, there may be an audience for it, right? But I think generally speaking, that's not what people want, especially now. A lot of people. There's probably an audience for it. I want to be very clear there. So Jim is correct, definitely speaking about it in this context.
It's just, it's boring. And an awful lot of retcon going on. And I mean, like I said, I respect the intent of the creators. And Jack Kirby never intended for Thor to be a girl. And he never intended. Joe Simon, Jack Kirby, and Stan Lee are spinning in their graves because they turned Captain America into like a Hydra guy or a Nazi or something, and he always was. Well, that's just wrong. I mean, don't do that.
Stay true to the character.
Yeah,
stay true to the character.
So people got mad at him for that. And you look at it, it's like a basic thing. He didn't say anything that was out of pocket. It's Jim Shooter. He's right. Like, it's a lot of guys that Jim Shooter isn't just some commentator, right? There's a lot of guys that just speak shit and they don't really know. They've never been there. And again, you're free to criticize, you're free to speculate, for sure. Jim is not one of those guys. Jim's been there and he's done that also. So he's at least coming from that perspective. That's not to say that inherently makes him right. I'm just saying he is coming at least from some level of expertise on this specific topic, right? Because there was a lot of things that, and more stories came out that Jim Shooter would knock down because he was like, it's a bad idea. I don't care. You get mad at me all you want, but we're not doing that. We're not going this route. With comics, yeah, like it's a lot of, and when we talk about like the retcon, and I brought this point up before, not always is it about, racial stuff, though I know that's what I got known for because I would talk about tokenization. But I always said that was not the only problem. Right? That's a problem for sure. A massive one. Tokenization is a massive issue. Massive issue. For sure. But there's other forms of retcon that just doesn't make sense anyway. And it's often because you have a bunch of creators who are leading with a lot of their social preferences above all else. It's not to be entertaining first. First and foremost, you set out to entertain. Right? It's not to say you can't have your opinion. That's not to say that you can't have your own aspirations. That's not to say that you can't lean whatever way that you can politically. Now, especially with legacy characters, but you have to understand that if this stuff is not entertaining, there are going to be people that have a problem with it. And that's what happened with the modern mainstream comic book industry, is that those social issues and all that hyper-emphasizing of it it just, you're beating the audience over the head. And there's one point I want to speak on that, because you're going to have those leftists that say, oh, well, so-and-so punched Nazis and all that stuff. And I always bring up that the difference between today's day and age and the previous, like, generations, and definitely when they would do their war stories and stuff, they were either taking positions that were, like, almost, like, unanimous, right, for the American population at the time, or there was balance, right? You see people that were Democrats depicted in a good light. You see people that were Republicans that were depicted in a good light in America's case. Now it's just one-sided. That's the opinion that you must have. Trump, well, he's MODOK. President Barack Obama, he gets the cover of Amazing Spider-Man. You see what I'm saying? And he's smiling and cheesing his ass off. You see what I'm saying? So there's a difference, right, between, you know, taking the general position, acknowledging universal truths, making it entertaining, and or if you are going to entertain real world political aspects, if there's no balance, because I know that leftists like to think that their opinion is the only opinion that exists. But bro, half of the voting population does not agree with you. So if you are going to, I prefer to, like, as much as we realistically can, stay away from it as far as our business, Rippaverse. I can't speak for other businesses. I do think that it's going to land a lot better if you have balance. If you have to, you feel like I got to do this, I have to be a little less subtle with these types of narratives, then you got to have balance. Because if you don't have balance, it's just going to be swayed to one way, and that's going to grow boring, tired, and old. And that's what happened with the mainstream comic book industry, where you had a lot of these foul social positions. They're beating the audience over the head, and, you know, they depict their enemy. I mean, you look at what they did with Punisher, right? They wanted to strip Punisher down because of who in real life likes Punisher, right? And that becomes clear and obvious. They don't like who likes Punisher. They don't like who rocks his symbol. And so they take exception to that. So a lot of what they do is to spite people that, you know, have the right position. But if you're not entertaining, which is essentially what Jim Shooter is saying, it's going to come across as boring. Everything Jim Shooter said is facts. You can get mad at him all you want. Thanks for watching. Be sure to head over to Rippaverse.com to check out our comic book company. We have books, plenty of merchandise, and even some glorious animations from Rippaverse Studios.